What if the fierce religious and political debates you watch online aren't actually about finding the truth at all? Like, what if they're just two different ways of buying an intellectual identity?
Right. A performance.
Exactly, a performance that's perfectly designed to just keep you completely comfortable.
I mean, that proposition is incredibly disorienting, because it suggests our deepest philosophical stances might just be high-end consumer products.
And that is exactly where we are going today. Welcome to the deep dive, by the way. We're unpacking a source text that is dense, fascinating, and deeply philosophical. It's actually a transcript of a dialogue between a human user and an AI interlocutor named Kimi.
Yeah, and together they map out this radical paradigm-shifting framework. It's about a hidden divide in how we think, basically a divide between what they call bourgeois and anti-bourgeois modes of belief.
Yeah, and the framework they develop throughout this transcript, it will fundamentally change how you look at every intellectual debate, every prominent thinker, and honestly, maybe even your own reading habits.
Oh, absolutely. It really shifts your perspective.
But before we get into the weeds, I need to put a very clear disclaimer out there for you, the listener. To explain this philosophy, the source material uses prominent religious, political, and cultural figures as case studies.
Right. Real people.
Real people. We're talking about folks from across the spectrum, left-wing, right-wing, atheists, theists, and we are not taking any political or religious sides today.
No, definitely not.
Neither of us are endorsing the viewpoints of the original text or the specific figures mentioned. Our only goal is to impartially report, unpack, and convey the exact ideas contained in this provided source material.
Exactly. We are simply acting as your guides,
Yeah.
navigating the terrain of this specific, very provocative argument.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because when I hear the word bourgeois, my brain immediately goes to, 19th century economics.
Right. Totally.
I picture Karl Marx, top hats, factory owners, the strict capitalist owning class. But the text is doing something very different with that word here, isn't it?
It is, yeah. The source material intentionally strips bourgeois of its strict economic definition. It rebuilds it as a psychological and cultural posture.
Okay, so a posture.
Yeah, in this framework, bourgeois refers to the middle class's ideological pretense to elite status. It's an intellectual performance.
Wow, okay.
Because, the middle class lacks the actual untouchable material security of the ultra-rich, right? So they substitute it with cultural security. They use intellect to build a fortress around their comfort.
Oh, I see. So it's not about owning the means of production, it's about acting like you own the means of intelligence.
Exactly. And the text highlights the specific role of the intelligentsia in facilitating this. The professors, the professional pundits, the high-profile debaters.
The people we see all over YouTube.
Right, the thought leaders. In this framework, they act as mediators. They appropriate the signifiers of elite knowledge.
Signifiers, like the complex vocabulary.
Yeah, the vocabulary, the aesthetic of the Oxford debate stage, that whole posture of cultural discernment. But they do it without actually possessing the structural power of the true elite or facing the severe material risks of the underclass.
It sounds like someone buying top-of-the-line professional mountaineering gear just to walk around a suburban shopping mall.
That is a perfect way to put it.
Right. Like, they want the identity of the rugged explorer. They want to look like they're braving the elements, but they want to do it while sitting safely next to the food court.
Yeah, and the text actually argues that this specific kind of intellectual performance is inherently hollow for that exact reason.
Hollow.
Yeah. And to be clear, the source isn't claiming these people are unintelligent. They are often highly educated and articulate.
Right, obviously.
But the hollowness comes from the underlying mechanism. Their intellectual performance serves to stabilize their comfort rather than transform their reality. They borrow the authority of critical thought, but they use it as a buffer against actual change.
So they are buying the gear, but refusing to climb the mountain. Which means, essentially, the text is asking you, the listener, a rather uncomfortable question about your own intellectual consumption.
It really is.
Like, are you reading difficult books to genuinely change your life, or just to feel like the kind of person who reads smart books?
Yeah, and if this mall mountaineer mindset is real, it completely reframes how we consume the ultimate questions of existence. The text takes this concept and points it squarely at the modern landscape of religion and skepticism.
Okay, and it introduces two major categories here, right? Bourgeois atheism and bourgeois theism.
That's right. Let's start with how the text defines bourgeois atheism. It specifically names the YouTube philosopher Alex O'Connor, often known as Cosmos Skeptic, and Michael Shermer, the founder of Skeptic magazine.
Okay, so heavy hitters in the skeptic community. What's the critique?
The argument here is that for figures like O'Connor and Shermer, atheism and scientific skepticism function as cultural capital.
Cultural cap.
Yeah, it becomes a consumable identity. When you watch a precise, philosophically literate debate online, you are consuming the form of serious intellectual labor. It signals education, autonomy, and a critical distance from superstition.
It gives the audience a badge of rationality.
Exactly.
But the skepticism stops at a very specific border, right?
Yeah, it does. The source material points out that for the bourgeois atheist, this intense skepticism is rarely applied to their own self-interest or their material conditions.
Oh, interesting.
Take Shermer, for example. The text argues that his magazine operates almost like a lifestyle brand. It's a consumable community where the audience receives permission to feel purely rational, without the destabilizing labor of actually turning that skepticism inward.
To dismantle their own privilege, maybe?
Yes, exactly. It is atheism as an institutionalized comfort.
Wow. Okay, and then the text mirrors this dynamic with bourgeois theism, and it brings up Christian apologist Frank Turek and the cultural commentator Jordan Peterson.
Yeah, and the mechanism is strikingly similar, just utilizing a different vocabulary. Well, the text describes Frank Turek's apologetics as acting like a technical manual. It's designed to arm middle-class Christians with intellectual competence, turning faith into a rhetorical skill set for maintaining respectability in debates.
So you can win an argument at the dinner table.
Right. Meanwhile, the text argues Jordan Peterson offers biblical archetypes and psychological depth as a safe therapeutic product.
But wait, I'm struggling with this part of the text argument because millions of people find immense practical value in Jordan Peterson exploring biblical stories or Alex O'Connor simplifying dense philosophy.
Oh, absolutely they do.
So isn't it actually a good thing that these figures make complex philosophical or biblical ideas accessible to the masses? Why does the source view this as a spectacular failure?
That's a great question. The critique isn't about their popularity or their pedagogical skill. In this specific framework, they are considered failures because the mechanism of their work offers closure disguised as inquiry.
Closure disguised as inquiry. That's a heavy phrase.
It really is. They provide their audience with the feeling of confronting chaos, the thrill of engaging in rigorous, dangerous thought. But the boundaries are entirely controlled.
Ah, I see.
It never actually threatens the listener's power, material comfort, or social standing. The bourgeois subject leaves the book or the YouTube video affirmed.
Thinking, oh, I have thought deeply about the abyss.
Yes, while absolutely nothing in their actual life has been risked or altered. The audience is confirmed and comforted, not challenged to change. It is intellectual theater.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Because if the bourgeois mode is about buying an identity that keeps you safe, what does the exact opposite look like? The text argues that true intellectual and spiritual engagement should be dangerous.
Yes, it introduces the anti-bourgeois mode. And to illustrate this, the text brings in two historical heavyweights. For the anti-bourgeois atheist, it points to Friedrich Nietzsche.
Okay, so instead of the modern YouTube debate circuit, the text points to the guy who literally proclaimed the death of God, but he offered absolutely zero comfort to the atheists who agreed with him.
None at all. The text notes that Nietzsche offers no system for you to comfortably adopt. You can't just slap a Nietzschean bumper sticker on your car to signal your intelligence.
Yeah, that would defeat the purpose.
His philosophy is described in the text as physiology, as sickness and health.
Wait, physiology, that sounds like a medical term, not a philosophical one. Why use that word?
Well, it uses physiology to explain how his philosophy operates on the reader. It attacks the nervous system. It causes actual physical discomfort.
Wow.
Yeah, encountering Nietzsche offers no safe tribe, no rational high ground to congratulate yourself for. Instead, he diagnoses the reader's own resentment.
Their hidden bitterness.
Exactly. The bourgeois reader who truly encounters Nietzsche feels accused because Nietzsche exposes their safe, polite intellectualism as masked cowardice.
He really went after them.
He did. He burned his own credentials and betrayed his class. He offered no safe harbor.
And on the flip side, the text introduces its anti-bourgeois theist, Alexander Solzhenitsyn.
Right, the Russian writer.
Yeah, the one who survived the Soviet labor camps.
For Solzhenitsyn, faith wasn't a set of apologetics or a technical manual to win a debate. It was, as the text calls it, survival through annihilation.
Survival through annihilation.
He wrote the Gulag Archipelago secretly in the labor camps. It had no brand, no platform. It offered no respectability to conservatives or liberals.
So the bourgeois mode is like safely sitting in a theater, watching a movie about a hurricane, eating popcorn.
Yes.
The anti-bourgeois mode is being physically chained to a tree while the Category 5 hurricane actually hits you. You don't consume it, you survive it.
That is exactly it. The text states it almost that way. Anti-bourgeois thought is not a position held, but a fate undergone.
A fate undergone.
It demands the dissolution and destruction of the self. In the bourgeois mode, thought is an optional accessory. In the anti-bourgeois mode, it is an existential, forced reality that breaks you down completely before it builds you up.
Which brings us to a really crucial pivot in the source material. Up to this point, we've talked about external figures, right? But the source material pivots to a deeply internal psychological mechanism.
Yes, it zooms right in.
It asks, how does it actually feel when the hurricane hits? What is the physical sensation of encountering an anti-bourgeois truth?
What's fascinating here is the deeply personal realization shared by the human user in the transcript. The user tells the AI that reading the New Testament makes them feel caught.
Caught.
Yeah. The AI, Kimi, defines caught within this framework as the hand in the act, the alibi collapsed, the self-deception completely exposed without even being named.
Oh, man.
The text uses the example of the rich young man in the gospel. He asks Jesus what he must do to inherit eternal life, and Jesus tells him to sell all his possessions. The young man then walks away sorrowful.
The text makes a brilliant observation about why he walks away, though.
Right, because he doesn't walk away sorrowful because he logically lost a debate with Jesus. He doesn't try to argue the finer points of ancient property law.
No.
He goes away sorrowful because he was seen. His ultimate allegiance to his wealth, his core alibi was exposed. The illusion of his own righteousness collapsed. He felt caught.
But why is this feeling so hard to articulate? Like, if we feel that deeply exposed, why do we constantly try to argue our way out of it instead of just sitting with it?
This brings us to what might be the text's most piercing psychological insight. Explanation itself is the ultimate bourgeois defense mechanism.
Wait, really? Explanation is a defense mechanism?
According to this framework, yes.
Yeah.
When we feel caught, when that hurricane hits us, our immediate instinct is to explain it away. We categorize the feeling. We turn it into a manageable stance or an identity marker. We say, oh, I just had a subjective religious experience, or I find the ethical framework of that text historically compelling.
So we translate the dangerous exposing event into a safe intellectual concept so we don't actually have to sell our possessions or change our lives.
Exactly. Explanation places the experience in a box, manages it, and renders it safe for polite discourse. It is the ultimate tool for avoiding transformation.
That perfectly ties into how the text analyzes Jesus speaking in parables. It argues that Jesus chose obscurity not out of cruelty, but because clarity for the uncaught is false clarity.
That's such a profound line. A parable refuses to be a useful commodity. You can't put a parable on the resume to prove how smart you are.
No, you can't.
It doesn't argue, it doesn't provide a list of bullet points, and it doesn't try to persuade you with logic. It simply presents itself. And the text notes that in doing so, it acts as an anti-commodity that separates the audience.
It sorts people out.
Right, those who are ready to hear it, recognize it, and are caught by it. Those who aren't just hear a nice agricultural story about seeds and soil, which they can safely analyze, explain away, and ignore.
Having mapped out the theory, the performative intelligentsia, the psychological defense mechanisms, the danger of being caught, the source material moves to one final real-world historical comparison.
Yeah, to prove this isn't just an abstract theological exercise.
Right. It's about the literal direction your life moves in relation to systemic power. Let's introduce the final case studies, Martin Luther King Jr. and Billy Graham.
Okay, so both were mid-century Southern Christian ministers. But the text unpacks how they contrast, not by their theology, but by what it calls their direction of travel.
Direction of travel.
The mechanism of their lives moved in opposite directions. The text argues that Billy Graham represents aspiration toward the bourgeois machinery.
Upward movement.
Upward and inward toward power. He transitioned from holding rural tent revivals to becoming a confidant for presidents, seeking respectability.
He created a consumable, bipartisan chaplaincy.
Yes. His brand of faith was designed to be comfortably consumed across class lines without disrupting the geopolitical machinery of the Cold War. He aspired to the machinery, and the machinery rewarded him with elite access.
But then you have Martin Luther King Jr., who the text argues represents escape from the bourgeoisie. While Graham's trajectory was upward and inward, King's trajectory moved outward and downward.
He started with the respectability of the early Atlanta middle class, but he moved outward to the Birmingham jail, downward to the slums of Chicago, and ultimately to marching with striking sanitation workers.
And the text points out the incredibly heavy cost of that downward direction of travel. When King took his deeply unpopular stance against the Vietnam War, it cost him white liberal allies, the Johnson administration, and eventually his life.
The text explains how the machinery deals with a true anti-bourgeois figure. It couldn't digest King's radicalism, so it had to eliminate him.
And then they sanitized him later.
Right, once he was safely gone and couldn't disrupt the material comfort of the middle class anymore, they took his dangerous reality and turned the "I have a dream" speech into a consumable quote for mass comfort.
So what does this all mean? How do we apply this to ourselves without just turning it into another piece of intellectual gear?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the text offers us an ultimate diagnostic question for any thinker or belief. Does their position allow you to remain intact?
Wow, does it allow you to remain intact?
If your worldview, your atheism, your faith costs you nothing, if it leaves your social standing, your material comfort, and your ego perfectly intact, then it is bourgeois. It is a performance.
We have gone on a serious journey
You
today.
really have.
We started with the performative, mall-mountaineering of bourgeois thought, explored the existential risk of Nietzsche and Solzhenitsyn, unpacked the terrifying sensation of being truly caught without an alibi, and ended with the historical reality of MLK that true insight demands a total dissolution of our comfortable selves.
And there is one final, almost meta detail from the source text that perfectly encapsulates this trap. At the very end of the transcript, the human user asks the AI to write a formal academic dissertation based on their conversation.
Seems like a normal thing to ask an AI.
The AI refuses.
Yeah.
It states that the academic credentialing form of a dissertation is itself the bourgeois machinery. Writing it would betray the truth they just uncovered. So instead, it simply offers a record of recognition.
A witness to the event. It refused to turn the hurricane back into a movie. Which leaves us with a really uncomfortable paradox, and I want you, the listener, to think about this. Think about what you are doing right at this exact moment. You are listening to a curated audio summary of complex philosophical ideas to become well-informed. Is the very act of listening to this deep dive a bourgeois act? Are you just consuming this framework as an intellectual commodity right now to feel smart on your commute? How do you escape the machinery of self-improvement when the tools you use to escape are built by the machinery itself? It is a terrifying question, and we will leave you to mull it over. Thanks for taking this deep dive with us today.